There's a lot happening with Lil Durk's trial, and new reports are coming straight from court. One of them involves a chilling confession from Durk to Lul Pabs' mother about the beef that led to her son's death, and apparently what Durk said could seriously hurt his case. Let me catch you up on what's actually going on. Jury selection wrapped up on a Friday in downtown Los Angeles, and by Monday, opening statements were underway in a case that had been delayed, pushed back, and fought over for nearly 2 years. Federal prosecutors in Los Angeles finalized a 16-person jury to hear the murder-for-hire case against Grammy-winning rapper Lil Durk, drawing a final panel of 12 jurors and 4 alternates from an 80-person candidate pool over 2 days in downtown federal court. Getting there wasn't simple. A jury spent 2 full days being asked how they feel about gangsta rap before they could even sit down for Lil Durk's federal murder-for-hire trial, with one woman saying rap music suggests violence to her, another admitting the genre carries negative connotations in her mind, and one juror reportedly asking for subtitles just to follow the lyrics. That detail alone tells you something about what this trial is really about. It's not just gunfire outside a gas station, it's words, song lyrics, text messages, a voice note, pieces of Durk's own voice that prosecutors intend to use as the backbone of their case. Days before the trial opened, prosecutors filed a memo that laid out one of their sharpest pieces of evidence yet. In Durk's murder-for-hire trial, prosecutors filed a trial memorandum claiming Durk rejected an effort to end the conflict, months after the August 2022 Los Angeles shooting that killed Rondo's cousin Seville, Lul Pabs Robinson, alleging that an affiliate of Rondo reached out in December 2022, attempting to squash the rivalry, and that Durk responded in a voice message saying he wasn't getting on the phone to settle things because the situation was about his late brother D-Thang and King Von. Prosecutors say that timing matters. That timing is what makes the government's argument interesting. Prosecutors appear prepared to use the exchange to support their contention that the alleged conspiracy and Durk's retaliatory motive extended beyond the Los Angeles shooting. Read that back. A chance to end it, offered to him directly, months after a young man had already been killed. And according to the government, he turned it down on record in his own voice. That's not the only piece of Durk's own words that prosecutors plan to put in front of the jury. Buried in a superseding indictment filed earlier this year is a text message the government says came straight from him. The indictment also includes a text message allegedly sent by Durk that reads, "I can't let this slide," in reference to Von's death. 5 words. Prosecutors are betting those 5 words carry more weight than any witness they could put on the stand. Then there's the music. Just days before the trial began, the judge overseeing the case made a ruling that will shape how jurors see Durk before he even says a word in his own defense. Judge Fitzgerald allowed the government to introduce Durk's 2021 "Pissed Me Off" music video and lyrics, with prosecutors contending the material helps establish Durk's desire to retaliate for King Von's death. Durk's team pushed back hard on that. Durk's attorneys fought its admission, arguing that using the song risks unfair prejudice and that artistic expression should not be treated as a literal confession. But the judge didn't stop there. In the final pre-trial hearing before the trial opened, more of Durk's public words got cleared for the jury to hear. Durk had his final pre-trial hearing on Tuesday, August 18, where Judge Michael Fitzgerald considered several disputed prosecution exhibits and ruled that an excerpt from a 2021 DJ Academics interview featuring 6ix9ine and Wack 100 can be admitted. Now picture where Lul Pabs' mother sits through all of this. She's not a distant figure reading headlines from home. She has shown up to hearing after hearing since this case began, and she said publicly more than once that she fears for her safety just for being in the room. Reporter Meghan Cuniff shared that the victim's mother traveled to Los Angeles from Savannah, Georgia, and said she fears for her life. She's carried her son's memory into that courthouse with her. Literally. She showed reporters a memorial button featuring a picture of the late victim, which read, "Saviaya, my son, my best friend." She had him young. Lul Pabs' mother also shared that he was her only child, and she had given birth to him at the age of 15. That's the woman sitting in that courtroom while prosecutors read aloud a voice message allegedly recorded by the man accused of ordering the plot that killed her son. That's the room this text message, this rejected peace offering, this music video are being played in. This isn't a case built only on witnesses pointing fingers. It's a case where the government wants jurors to hear the accused explain himself, in his own words, recorded before any of this became a federal indictment. And it's happening while the person who buried her only child watches from a few rows back. To understand how something so personal, a voice note about a dead brother, a text about not letting something slide, became Exhibit A in a federal murder trial, you have to go back to where the anger started. Before the gas station, before the lawsuit, before the bond hearings and the tears in the courtroom. It starts with a shooting outside an Atlanta nightclub nearly 6 years ago now, and the friend Durk lost that night. Every version of this story, whether from prosecutors or from Durk's own camp, agrees on one thing. None of it happens without King Von. Davon Bennett, known to the world as King Von, was a rising Chicago rapper and one of Durk's closest collaborators. Prosecutors allege the attempted hit was retaliation for the November 2020 killing of Durk's close friend and fellow rapper Davon, King Von Bennett, outside an Atlanta nightclub. Von wasn't a random label signee. He was family in the way that Chicago drill music treats its closest circles. Someone Durk had built a career next to. Someone whose death didn't just hurt, it reportedly rearranged how Durk moved afterward, according to what prosecutors now allege. The person prosecutors say was connected to that Atlanta shooting has his own name attached to the case. Rondo's associate Timothy Leaks was charged in connection with Von's death. And the rival rapper whose crew was involved that night was Tyquan Bowman, the Atlanta artist known as Quando Rondo. According to federal prosecutors, that's where the retaliation plan allegedly began to take shape. Authorities allege Banks placed a bounty on and ordered the murder of rival rapper Quando Rondo. And prosecutors alleged Banks orchestrated an August 2022 attempted murder, in which his alleged associates stalked Bowman and shot at his car, killing Bowman's cousin Xavier Lul Pabs Robinson. While Bowman survived the incident, the government's theory of how that bounty turned into gunfire is specific. Law enforcement officials charged the 33-year-old artist, whose legal name is Durk Derek Banks, in a 32-page superseding indictment, alleging Banks placed a bounty on rival Atlanta rapper Tyquan Bowman and funded members of his Only the Family OTF rap collective to execute the plot. Members of that collective allegedly didn't stay in Chicago to wait for an opportunity. They went looking for one. An alleged hit team consisting of Banks' crew members traveled from Chicago to Los Angeles with the intention of killing Bowman, but a botched ambush at a gas station near the Beverly Center shopping mall resulted in the death of Bowman's cousin, who was traveling with him, according to prosecutors. The shooting itself, based on court filings, wasn't a stray bullet or a single shot fired in a panic. The ambush went wrong, and Bowman's cousin Lul Pabs was killed instead, with prosecutors saying at least 18 rounds were fired at his vehicle during a gas station shooting. 18 rounds fired at a car that had Quando Rondo in it and his 20-year-old cousin sitting beside him. Rondo lived, Lul Pabs didn't. Bowman survived, but his cousin, known as Lul Pabs, was shot and killed. Durk wasn't there that night, and his lawyers have made that point loudly and often. Durk was not in Los Angeles at the time of the shooting, and his attorneys have argued that prosecutors lack evidence tying him to the alleged murder plot. That's the entire defense in one sentence. Distance. He wasn't on that street, wasn't in that car, wasn't pulling a trigger. The government's answer to that is the paper trail. The money, the messages, the music, the voice note about his brother and King Von. They're arguing that you don't need to be standing at the gas station to be the reason for what happened there. 2 other men are standing trial next to him, and their alleged roles sit closer to the ground than his. He is being tried alongside OTF associates DeAndre OTF Dady Wilson and David Brownie as Lindsay, who have also denied the charges. Prosecutors say these weren't independent actors, settling a score of their own. Prosecutors allege these men traveled from Chicago to LA on Durk's orders to participate in the 2022 killing, charges they deny. This wasn't the only violence prosecutors have tried to tie to Durk in building their picture of him. Wikipedia's account of the case notes that investigators also looked at another Chicago killing. Court documents show that Banks was suspected of being involved with several murders and attempted murders. Most notably the January 2022 murder of Stefan Mack, a member of the rival gangster Disciples. Prosecutors even tried to expand the case earlier this year with a new and more serious charge tied to organized crime law. In June 2026, Banks and his associates were charged with violations of the Violent Crimes in Aid of Racketeering Activity statute, specifically murder in aid of racketeering. The judge, though, drew a hard line around what jurors in this trial would actually hear. Durk and the other defendants could also face a separate trial later on. Additional racketeering allegations added in June, but Fitzgerald ruled they would not be part of the trial beginning Thursday. Durk's team called the late addition a desperate move. Durk's lawyers called this addition lipstick on a pig and said it was a clear attempt to bulk up a very weak case with unrelated evidence. And Judge Fitzgerald scolded prosecutors for the last-minute gambit, ruling that the new racketeering counts would be excluded from the initial August trial. So the trial that started this week is narrower than the full-picture prosecutors have painted of Durk over the past 2 years. It's about one bounty, one gas station, one August night in 2022, and the 18 bullets that hit a car meant for someone else. But everything else, Von's death, the brother he mentions in that voice message, the years of Chicago drill rivalries, sits underneath it like the roots of a tree the jury isn't allowed to see, only the trunk. What makes this case different from most murder trials is what the government chose to build its case around. Not just guns, not just getaway cars, not just informants flipping for lighter sentences. Words! Durk's own words, spoken and written and rapped, are doing a version of the government's job for them. That's where this story goes next, into exactly how prosecutors turned a rapper's art and his private messages into the centerpiece of a murder-for-hire case. There's a reason Durk's legal team fought so hard, for so long, to keep certain material away from the jury. Rap lyrics as courtroom evidence isn't new in America, but it's rarely been the centerpiece of a federal murder case involving an artist with Durk's level of mainstream success. The fight over the Pissed Me Off video and its lyrics went on for months before the judge finally ruled. Fitzgerald allowed the government to introduce Durk's 2021 Pissed Me Off music video and lyrics, with prosecutors contending the material helps establish Durk's desire to retaliate for King Von's death. A decision Durk's attorneys fought, arguing that using the song risks unfair prejudice and that artistic expression should not be treated as a literal confession. That last phrase is the whole argument in miniature. Prosecutors want the jury to hear Durk's music the way they'd hear a confession. His defense wants the jury to hear it the way anyone in hip-hop would, as a genre built on exaggeration, persona, and street mythology, not sworn testimony. It's not the only piece of unreleased music prosecutors dug up either. According to court filings, they went looking for footage that never made it to the public. Prosecutors have also pointed to unreleased music as part of their evidence. And in a third superseding indictment filed in June, the government included screenshots from an unreleased music video for Redman that allegedly depicts Durk shooting and killing an individual portrayed as a Quando Rondo lookalike. Think about what that means for a jury that's already nervous about how rap lyrics might color their judgment. Potential jurors were asked point-blank whether the genre could affect their ability to stay impartial, and the answers were not exactly reassuring for the defense. One woman said rap music suggests violence to her. Another admitted the genre carries negative connotations in her mind. Now that same jury is going to be shown a music video prosecutors say shows Durk simulating the murder of a man who looks like his actual rival, months or years before that rival's cousin was actually killed. Durk's defense has tried to build a wall around this kind of material using experts rather than just objections. Durk's defense has separately sought expert testimony addressing drill rap, Chicago gang culture, and the distinction between artistic performance and real-world conduct. That's an entire academic argument being wheeled into a federal courtroom. The idea that drill music has its own internal language, its own exaggerations, its own performance of threat that isn't meant to be read literally. Whether that argument lands with a jury that already includes people uneasy about the genre is an open question the trial itself will answer. There's also the interview material. Just days before the trial opened, the judge cleared another piece of media most people would never expect to see in a federal courtroom. The judge ruled that an excerpt from a 2021 DJ Academics interview featuring 619 and Whack 100 can be admitted. That's a rap media personality's YouTube-style interview, now sitting in a trial binder next to firearms charges. But if the music is the loudest piece of evidence, the quietest ones might end up being the most damaging. A text message, 5 words long, sits inside the indictment with almost no context needed. The indictment also includes a text message allegedly sent by Durk that reads, "I can't let this slide," in reference to Von's death. No metaphor to argue about. No lyrics to call artistic license. Prosecutors will argue that's Durk speaking plainly, not performing. And then there's the voice message about the peace offering. Arguably the single most direct piece of alleged evidence in the entire case because of when it happened. Not before the shooting, when tempers could be explained as raw grief over Von. After it, months after Lul Pabs was already dead, prosecutors filed a trial memorandum claiming Durk rejected an effort to end the conflict. Months after the August 2022 shooting that killed Robinson, alleging that an affiliate of Rondo reached out in December 2022, attempting to squash the rivalry, and that Durk responded in a voice message saying he wasn't getting on the phone to settle things, because the situation was about his late brother D-Thang and King Von. That's the government's whole argument distilled into one moment. Someone tried to end the violence, and according to prosecutors, Durk chose not to. Not out of confusion about who died in the crossfire, not out of ignorance about what had already happened. He allegedly explained his reasoning out loud on a recording weeks after a 20-year-old was already in the ground. It's worth remembering that earlier versions of the case actually look different on this exact point. An indictment in May 2025 added a new count of stalking, but removed references to Durk's lyrics as evidence. Prosecutors pulled the lyrics out at one point, then found other ways to bring music-based evidence back in, through the Pissed Me Off video and the unreleased Redmond footage. That back and forth tells you the government knew exactly how risky and how powerful this kind of evidence could be. Risky, because it invites appeals and defense objections. Powerful because juries remember a rapper's own voice far longer than they remember a witness they've never heard of. All of this, the lyrics, the videos, the interview clip, the text, the voice note, adds up to a prosecution strategy that doesn't lean primarily on eyewitnesses in a courtroom. It leans on Durk's own recorded life. Every verse he's ever written for shock value, every unreleased visual, every quick text sent in anger has been pulled out of its original context and reassembled into a timeline. The government hopes spells out intent. Whether jurors buy that reassembly is going to depend heavily on who else takes the stand against him. And that's where the case gets even messier, because some of the people expected to testify are people who were allegedly in the car, in the crew, or in the room when this was planned. Federal murder-for-hire cases rarely rest on lyrics and text messages alone. They need people. And in this case, some of those people are cutting deals to talk. Just days before the trial opened, reports surfaced that prosecutors had lined up cooperating witnesses whose identities are still being kept from the public. Federal prosecutors have a list of anonymous witnesses who've signed plea deals in exchange for their testimonies against Durk, revealing the list in a memo sent to the judge, though the names and details of their plea agreements will remain under seal until the trial begins. The government made clear what it expects from them in exchange for those deals. The state told the judge that each witness must fully cooperate with the government and remain honest and forthcoming while they give their truthful testimony. That's a significant detail. It means at least some of the people expected to testify against Durk are people who were close enough to the alleged plot to be charged themselves and who chose to trade information for a lighter outcome. Defense attorneys almost always attacked this kind of testimony as unreliable, coached, or self-serving. But juries also know that people inside a conspiracy are often the only ones who can describe what actually happened inside it. The charges Durk is facing reflect just how seriously prosecutors are treating the full chain of events, not just the shooting itself. Lil Durk is set to face 5 charges, including conspiracy to commit murder for hire, committing murder for hire resulting in death, as well as the use of and discharge firearms and a machine gun, in furtherance of a crime of violence resulting in death. Add to that the additional counts named elsewhere in the indictment. In addition to interstate stalking with a dangerous weapon and interstate stalking that resulted in death, the other charges are murder in aid of racketeering, conspiracy to commit interstate stalking, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, use of interstate facilities to commit murder for hire resulting in death, and discharging a machine gun in furtherance of a crime of violence resulting in death. That's a stack of charges that, if he's convicted, doesn't leave much room for a light sentence. The trial carries potential life imprisonment. One piece of good news came for his side earlier in the case, at least in terms of what's off the table. Lil Durk's case will not include the death penalty, with the Attorney General for the United States directing the attorney for the Central District of California not to seek it. Life in prison, though, remains squarely on the table. While the legal maneuvering played out in filings and hearings, one person kept showing up in person again and again, refusing to let this become an abstraction: Lul Pabs' mother. Long before this trial began, she took her grief into civil court. The mother of Lul Pab filed a lawsuit against Durk in Cook County Court, with the All My Life rapper named as a defendant, along with his business manager, his Only the Family record label, and another company. In it, she said what she believed happened to her son in plain terms. In the legal documents, Robinson said her son, born Saviaya Robinson, was killed during a targeted attack in Los Angeles in 2022. The Robinson family is seeking justice and accountability through this lawsuit. Then, when a bond hearing gave her the chance to be in the same room as the man accused of ordering the attack that killed her son, she flew across the country to be there. The mother of Lul Pab traveled from Savannah, Georgia, to Los Angeles, California, to attend Chicago rapper Lil Durk's bond hearing, and said she feared for her life as she cried in court. That hearing didn't go Durk's way. During Lil Durk's bond hearing, which was ultimately denied, Lul Pab's mother appeared in court and expressed fears for her safety. Even Durk's own attorney couldn't dismiss what she said that day. Drew Findling asked directly about her statement, didn't attack her. He showcased a lot of compassion for her and praised her level-headed statement, saying she literally said she didn't know what happened, that she lost her son, and he had nothing but compassion for her. He went further, calling it one of the more composed statements he'd heard in that position. That was probably the most mature one I have ever heard, he said, while still expressing confidence that her emotion in the room wouldn't sway the judge's ruling on the law. Findling seemed very confident that the court would not be swayed at all by Lul Pab's mother's emotions. Her son's death changed how Durk's own mother talks about this case too. Speaking on a podcast, LaShonda Woodard didn't frame this only as her son's legal fight. She framed it as loss on both sides. It's like I lost another child, Woodard began. It hurts, like I couldn't believe it. She described the moment she realized something was wrong, the morning he was arrested. She knew something was wrong because she kept calling his phone and he didn't answer. So she called his sisters, asking if they'd heard from him, and they said no. Durk has changed in custody in small, visible ways his mother has spoken about too. She confirmed he cut off the dreadlocks he'd worn for years while he waits for this trial to end. Woodard confirmed that the Grammy-winning artist has cut off his signature blonde-tipped dreadlocks while awaiting trial on federal murder for higher charges. Two mothers, on opposite sides of the same courtroom's gravity, each describing something that feels like losing a son. One is watching her child face the possibility of dying in prison. The other already buried hers and has spent nearly 2 years walking into hearing after hearing to make sure no one forgets that. That tension, a defendant's family hoping for acquittal, a victim's family demanding accountability, both convinced they're right, is sitting inside that Los Angeles courtroom right now as the actual trial unfolds. And after 2 years of delays, bond denials, and evidentiary fights, the case has finally reached the stage where a jury, not a judge, gets to decide what all of it means. For most of the past 2 years, the safest bet on this case was that it would get delayed again. It had already happened 4 separate times. The trial was first supposed to happen in January, then got pushed. New federal court documents delayed the trial's start date to January 20, filed after the case had originally been supposed to happen the month before. Then that January date slipped too. A California judge moved his trial date to May 4 instead of January 20. May came and went without a trial as well, pushed further into the summer. U.S. District Judge Michael W. Fitzgerald rescheduled the Chicago rapper's trial for August 20. Each delay came with the same explanation from both sides. Too much evidence, too many defendants, too complicated to rush. Lil Durk's murder for hire trial had been postponed multiple times, with over 30,000 pages of evidence complicating the case. One motion described the situation almost apologetically. The case's unusual and complex nature, the amount of evidence, and the various co-defendants were what justified the delay, with the filing claiming it was unreasonable to expect preparation for pretrial proceedings or for the trial itself within the time limits. Durk, notably, was the one person who kept pushing back against the delays. Defendant Banks does not join in the stipulation to continue the trial in this matter, the filing stated. Nearly 2 full years in custody will do that to a person. He wanted his day in court faster than the system was willing to give it to him. He has been denied bail since his arrest in October 2024. Multiple attempts to get him out on bond, including elaborate ones, went nowhere. His bond had been denied several times, including a $4.5 million bail package, with his attorneys proposing cash, 24-hour home detention, electronic monitoring, and private security. Along the way, his legal team got reinforcements that signaled just how seriously his side was preparing to fight this. One of the most notable developments came in early 2026, when prominent defense attorney Brian Steele joined Durk's legal team, having become nationally known for representing Young Thug during the high-profile YSL racketeering case in Georgia. With his addition viewed by many observers as a sign that Durk's defense plans to vigorously contest the federal allegations. His longtime attorney Findling never stopped projecting confidence publicly either, describing years of preparation heading into the trial date. For 21 months, we have been unwavering in our commitment to Mr. Banks and his innocence, and look forward to an Aug 2026 trial, he said. Then, this week, the delays finally ran out. The trial began on August 20, 2026. It's now an ongoing federal criminal trial in the United States District Court for the Central District of California, involving American rapper Durk, Lil Durk, Banks, and 5 associates from his record label Only the Family, stemming from an August 2022 shooting death of Saviaya. Lul Pabs Robinson, cousin of American rapper Taekwon Quando Rondo Bowman. The trial is expected to stretch on for weeks, not days. The trial, expected to last several weeks, begins with jury selection and opening arguments, beginning as early as the following day. Every piece of the evidence discussed here, the voice message about King Von and his brother, the text about not letting things slide, the pissed me off video, the unreleased Redmond footage, the DJ Academics interview clip, and whatever the anonymous cooperating witnesses say from the stand, now gets tested in front of 12 jurors and 4 alternates, who already told the court, under oath, that rap music makes some of them uneasy. For Durk, the stakes could not be higher. A conviction on the top charges leaves life imprisonment on the table. For Lul Pabs' mother, whatever verdict comes at the end of this doesn't undo the fact that she buried her only child, born when she was 15 years old, over a beef that had nothing to do with him directly. She was in that car that night only because she was traveling with her cousin. 18 rounds were never aimed at her son specifically. They were aimed at Quando Rondo, and her son happened to be sitting next to him. That's the part of this case that doesn't need a jury's verdict to already feel unbearable. Whatever the 12 people in that box eventually decide about intent, about the voice message, about whether a rap video counts as evidence or art, none of it changes the fact that a mother has spent nearly 4 years attending hearings for a killing that took someone who was never supposed to be the target at all. The trial is underway now, expected to run for weeks, with witnesses still to come, and a defense team that has made clear it intends to fight every piece of audio, video, and text the government tries to put in front of the jury. Whatever verdict comes out of that Los Angeles courtroom, it will close one chapter of a story that started with a nightclub shooting in Atlanta nearly 6 years ago, and ended with a mother from Savannah, Georgia, sitting through hearing after hearing, still wearing a button with her son's picture on it, waiting to hear whether anyone will be held responsible for the night.